He lived in a bulletproof tent surrounded by an all-female bodyguard unit. He called himself the King of Kings of Africa. He once lectured the United Nations for 96 minutes straight, tearing up the UN Charter in front of world leaders. And when his people finally rose against him, he met one of the most brutal ends in modern history. This is the story of Muammar Gaddafi, the man who ruled Libya with an iron fist for 42 years, amassed billions while his people suffered, and whose fall would trigger chaos across an entire region. But here's what most people don't know. Gaddafi didn't start as a tyrant. He was once seen as a hero, a revolutionary who promised to free his people from corruption and colonial influence. So how did a Bedouin shepherd's son transform into one of history's most eccentric and brutal dictators? And why, despite having billions in wealth and absolute power, did he end up hiding in a drainage pipe, begging for his life? Stay with me, because this story gets darker than you think. Muammar Gaddafi was born in 1942 in a Bedouin tent in the Libyan desert. His family was poor, living a nomadic lifestyle, but young Muammar was ambitious. He was inspired by Egyptian leader Gamal Abdel Nasser and his pan-Arab nationalism movement. September 1st, 1969. King Idris was vacationing in Turkey, completely unaware of what was about to happen. Back in Libya, 27-year-old Captain Gaddafi and a group of young military officers made their move. They seized control of government buildings, radio stations, and military bases, all while the king slept thousands of miles away. By sunrise, it was over. No battles, no bloodshed, no resistance. The Libyan people woke up to find their king dethroned and a young, charismatic revolutionary in charge. Gaddafi addressed the nation on the radio, declaring a new era of freedom and justice. The boldness was shocking. The execution was flawless. And just like that, at an age when most people are still figuring out their careers, Gaddafi had seized control of an entire nation. In the beginning, Gaddafi was actually popular. He promised to redistribute Libya's oil wealth to the people. He expelled foreign military bases, nationalized oil companies, and invested in education and healthcare. Literacy rates soared. Infrastructure improved. Libya's GDP per capita became one of the highest in Africa. He published his Green Book, outlining his third universal theory, a bizarre mix of socialism, Islam, and direct democracy that rejected both capitalism and communism. But here's where things get strange. As Gaddafi consolidated power, the revolutionary idealist began to morph into something else entirely. The question is, was he always a megalomaniac hiding behind revolutionary rhetoric, or did absolute power corrupt him completely? Gaddafi's behavior became increasingly bizarre. He traveled everywhere with his Amazonian guard, an all-female elite bodyguard unit dressed in military fatigues and high heels. He refused to stay in buildings, insisting on pitching his Bedouin tent even during state visits to Paris and New York. He declared himself brotherly leader and guide of the revolution, and later, King of Kings of Africa. His face was plastered on billboards across Libya. His speeches became rambling, incoherent marathons. Behind the eccentricity was something far more sinister. Gaddafi ruthlessly crushed dissent. Political opponents disappeared. Public hangings were televised. Journalists were imprisoned. The revolutionary committees acted as his secret police, creating a climate of fear. He sponsored international terrorism. The Lockerbie bombing in 1988 killed 270 people. The Berlin disco bombing in 1986 killed 3. Gaddafi became a pariah on the world stage. While Gaddafi preached socialism, he and his family lived like royalty. His son Hannibal spent $1.3 million on a 2-day party in the Caribbean. His daughter Aisha owned a private jet. Gaddafi himself was worth an estimated $200 billion at his peak, possibly the richest leader in history. Meanwhile, unemployment among Libyan youth reached 30%. Infrastructure crumbled. The promised utopia had become a prison state. For decades, it seemed like Gaddafi was untouchable. He survived multiple assassination attempts, international sanctions, and even a U.S. bombing raid that killed his adopted daughter. But in 2011, everything changed. The question is, what finally brought down a man who had survived everything? In early 2011, the Arab Spring swept across the Middle East. Tunisia's dictator fled. Egypt's Mubarak was overthrown. When protests erupted in Benghazi, Libya, Gaddafi made a fatal mistake. He responded with brutal force. He called the protesters rats and cockroaches and vowed to hunt them down alley by alley, house by house. His military fired on civilians. Hundreds died. The international community couldn't ignore it. NATO launched airstrikes. The rebels, once poorly armed protesters, began gaining ground. For months, Gaddafi remained defiant, releasing rambling audio messages, insisting he would never surrender. But city after city fell to the rebels. His regime was collapsing. On October 20, 2011, Gaddafi was found hiding in a drainage pipe in his hometown of Sirte. He was captured by rebel fighters, and what happened next was brutal. Beaten, humiliated, and killed. The graphic videos spread across the internet within hours. The man who once commanded armies, who lived in palaces, who called himself the King of Kings, died begging for mercy in a ditch. But Gaddafi's death didn't bring peace to Libya. Instead, the country descended into civil war. Rival militias fought for control. ISIS gained a foothold. Millions of refugees fled. Even today, Libya remains fractured and unstable. His legacy is one of wasted potential. A country rich in oil, left in ruins by a leader who cared more about his own power than his people's future. Muammar Gaddafi's story is a stark reminder of what happens when power goes unchecked. He started as a revolutionary promising freedom and ended as a tyrant consumed by paranoia and greed. His 42-year rule left Libya in chaos, his people traumatized, and his own family scattered in exile. The man who wanted to be remembered as Africa's great leader is instead remembered as one of history's most brutal dictators. What do you think? Could Gaddafi's fall have been avoided? Or was it inevitable? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear your perspective. And if you found this story as fascinating and disturbing as I did, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history's most controversial figures. We've got more stories like this coming your way. Next week, we're covering another leader whose rise and fall shocked the world. You won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.